It's about that time. You are about to get highly educated with the Cannabis Closet podcast with Canna Queen and MJ. This is an adult content show with no limitations on subject, language, or actions. Opinions, views, and expressions may or may not be that of the hosts and their subsidiaries. If you aren't sure, don't worry. We'll probably tell you, or you can just take a good look at our faces. It's time to get this session started. So thanks for rolling up and showing up, and enjoy the show. What's good? What's good? What's good? Oh, I have to unmute you. Because I always have to mute this because I can hear it in my ear. And I was like, oh no, but it was just like a press of a button.
I know. I don't even touch it because it's like I have a lag, so I feel like as soon as I hit it, then you're hitting it, and then I'm turned on.
Right.
Hey, Audrey. What up, lady?
What up? What up? I haven't even packed one for the show. I still have one left over though, so I'm just gonna light that. I am live on TikTok right now. I have to be really careful because they'll get mad at me for some things. They banned me last week for lighting a lighter. What's up? What's up, Audrey? They banned me last week for lighting a lighter on off screen. I was off screen, but it's one of these torch lighter things. So it's just like a regular lighter, but it sounds like a torch. I know. It's just they're crazy over there. It's overkill. They ban everything but pedophiles over there. I swear to God. You can show the world your butthole, but you cannot smoke a blunt. I might get banned for saying that shit. Oh no.
Jason is on his way. He's like, is there a link? I'm like, yep, it's up there. Roll up.
Yes, it's up there. He's covered. He'll be here.
Yeah, and then I emailed it to him as well, and then I just sent it again over to Adrian.
I'm gonna leave this studio out here on that one so that the lag is less. It's crazy. I've got friends that have gotten banned for nudity and when they're wearing full clothing. They definitely fat shame over on the TikToks. They definitely don't love stoners. But the thing is, and here's the problem, is that this platform is fun to use and it's easy to use. And once you get the hang of it, it's kind of cool to use. And so the platform is great, but it's just it's like, what was I saying the other day? I said, that it's a platform for young people that is run by old people. So like the rules are all fucking antiquated and shit, but it's young people accessible. Why won't it go away? Go away. It won't. I can't get it out of here. Let's see. Nope. Wrong button. Let's see if I can do it from here. Nope. I have to do it from over here. It's just being laggy over here. We're having technical difficulties, but not ones that you can see. Yeah, you gotta, and that's crazy to me too. You got to use code words for scientific terminology too, and that irritates me. Like I should be able to at least use the scientific term for what I'm talking about. What's up next?
Right. Let's say about cauliflower. Like I gotta call. Like I can talk about roses and.
I was live this morning and I was freaking out because I said the M word and the C word on my live, and I was like trying not to like get banned for saying the words because they've like literally, like I've tried to post one of our posters before and they've taken our posters down.
Yeah.
For a violation for illegal goods and services or some like what? Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
I think it was Jen that posted earlier that was like, hey, you're missing out on a whole revenue stream by banning cannabis, by not allowing for cannabis.
They are. Like, what is wrong with them? Why wouldn't they do that? Yeah. So you're missing out. Like there's a whole revenue stream exactly that you're missing out on.
There he is.
There he is. You want to come on in for the banter part? Because I mean, we're all friends here. Let's bring him in. How's that sound doing over there?
Hey, Jay.
Hey.
Hey, everybody. This is Jason Mitchell.
You may
You know him
recognize him.
and probably love him because we've had him on before.
We'll go get that Wi-Fi.
All right. And we may or may not have another guest join us. He's got the links. He is also working, so I think he'll try to pop in when he can.
Did you take my Why is Canna Queen Mad today? Oh, I want to introduce a new segment.
I did not take it. I didn't take anything down. I didn't have anything posted though.
Oh, well, I'm mad about how I woke up this morning, but that's nobody's fault except, life. But I did want to, that article I sent you? I did want to do a little new segment that we won't do all the time, but I do want to do it today.
Oh, the Today in White History, and we're going to just only primarily people.
Today in Why Do White Men Run Things? I have a submission. Okay. Where is it?
I have it.
You have it. Okay, good. Because I don't know. It's in this long list of other things that I have going on. You want to read it, and then we'll talk about it.
Sure. So the headline is. This is from 2019. So, but I'm sure there are daily occurrences that happen often.
I mean, it is history. So, okay.
Man allegedly hiding drugs in butt accidentally shoots himself in the testicles.
This has got everything. He's got drugs in his butt, and he shot himself in the nuts.
So he shot himself in the nuts and was also found to be hiding cannabis in his butt. 27 years old, carrying a gun in his front pocket in Washington State when the firearm accidentally discharged.
Right into his nutsack.
Right into his testicles and into his thigh. Upon arriving at the hospital, and a doctor operated, when a balloon of cannabis slipped out of Wilson's butt.
First,
while he was in surgery.
You wait, pause, because we have a question. Go ahead.
I want to make sure I'm catching the timing. You said this was 2019.
Yes.
In Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Proceed.
Okay. Let's see. Police arrived at the hospital, searched his car, where they also found a bag of meth.
So that was in his car, not in his butt.
Right.
The meth was in his car.
Yes.
Yeah.
The weed was in his butt. The meth was in his car. He shot himself in the nutsack and the thigh. Sorry.
Unfortunately, this dude is already, a convicted felon. Yes. He was searched, and another balloon of cannabis came out his butt.
2 bags of cannabis in his butt.
Wilson has pled not guilty to the second-degree felon in possession of a firearm and unlawful possession of meth. He also pled not guilty to possession of a controlled substance in a correctional facility.
Now it makes sense. Okay, now it's making a little more sense. Why he would have a legal substance in that state shoved in his butt.
Meth. That's why.
No. He had to be either going into prison, like preparing himself to go into jail, and he was keeping that in his prison wallet so he could make deals later.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I did read that wrong. As he was being processed into jail, he was strip searched, and that's when the second balloon fell out.
So was he running? Was he running? Was he being arrested? Because what you're saying is valid. It's making a valid point. Because I was like, why would you do that? Because you're on meth. And maybe he couldn't fit the meth in his butt. Maybe he couldn't fit the meth, and that's why it stayed in the car.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I thought there was some sort of mix up, like he put the wrong balloon. He meant to stick the meth balloon in the butthole and keep the legal substance out.
Right here in his pocket.
If he shot himself in the testicle, he's a felon. He's already a felon. He can't even be around a gun.
Yeah, so he was definitely around the gun in close
So this sounds like CEO material in modern day America, right? Like, wow.
So
wow.
So yes.
So I found this story and I send to MJ. I send her this and I say, can we do a new segment called Today in White History?
His bond was $110,000. Just FYI, they report that stuff.
Oh, poor people. Yeah, sorry. Don't get me started because that's probably a poor dude who's never going to have 10% of that bond.
Nah.
Who's never going to be able to get out.
Nah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot. But I thank you. I just recently learned what a prison wallet was by definition. So the visual.
The prison wallet is my favorite terminology.
Right. So the visual of this poor guy.
Oh my God.
Trying to figure out how to make it work while he was going back in wherever he was going in, already suffering the pain of being an idiot who shoots himself in the nuts. Look, that's why brothers don't keep guns in their front pockets. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's not a good idea to keep a gun in your front pocket like that.
No.
How are you ladies doing? You doing good?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I wanted to preface what you said something about today's why white guys are running shit or something. Was that?
Yeah. I was like today I question why white guys run shit because we
gotta remember white guys don't run shit everywhere. Just in our umbrella, right? Like we tend to forget that we're just one at best. We're just one country at best.
Right. Yeah.
On our best day. Like I'm saying this Ukraine shit now. Like I love.
Oh, I'm so glad you said it. Whew,
I love seeing people. I don't necessarily want to send American lives to be at risk.
Yes,
we can do everything else. We should be doing everything else in our power. Like if we can sell arms to Nicaraguans and you know what I'm saying? Like why can't we hook the Ukrainians up with latest dope shit, you know?
But also I have to bring some truth to this because we have to always bring light to everything that's happening. Our you know, I don't want to say thoughts and prayers because that sounds so cliche, but like we are really concerned about what's going on in Ukraine. And we hope that everybody is, gets out of there and is safe. We want people to be safe. Absolutely. However, and also, why am I mad today? Because why are you leaving Black and brown people on the train station not able to go with their families to protect themselves? You said women and children. Then women and children should be getting on that fucking train.
Right.
There's a complete racist backs, like everything, so we can't ignore that. We want everybody to be safe. You can't discriminate. You're not Ukrainian. Fuck you. I'm here. This is dangerous. I need to get the fuck out of here. I'm not Russian either. Like, get me the fuck out of here. And also just a side note on what I just said. If you live in these great United States, do not treat Russian individuals poorly. They are not responsible for their government's actions. They are people that, like, you know what I'm saying? We're not talking about like the leadership and things like that. We're talking about just regular everyday citizens that came here.
Oh, absolutely.
Got their little shop on the corner, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of Eastern European people in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
There are, absolutely. And look, we can't, I mean, at the end of the day, I think most of us are smart enough to know that we're not gonna promote the ideology of
Right.
blanket discrimination against people for their origin. Nah, this starts at Putin and works its way down. And that's, again, that's politics. And that's about as far as I want to get into that. Because, like I said, I want to support those people.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, and I'm not real familiar with the story you're talking about with people being left at a train station.
Yeah, they're leaving. They're not able to get across the borders.
What do you mean, like U.S. nationals?
African, no, some from African countries too.
Other immigrant status.
Immigrants. Yeah.
No, I get it. So they're letting. So what you're saying is, say the border of Poland, they're letting Ukrainians in.
Yes.
Naturally born white Ukrainians in, but they're not necessarily letting other immigrants.
Yeah,
in.
And there's. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me, other than they can judge. Like we had a Muslim ban in this country.
Yeah, that's fucking.
We're not going to have you out of these 7 countries. But
yeah, it's just gross, and I like just remember that it's everywhere. It's not just here in the United States.
It is
absolutely everywhere, and we just need to treat each other like human beings and keep each other safe.
I'm certainly learning it's a white European trait, right? Like at the end of the day,
yeah.
Africa has its own. The continent has the diaspora has its own tribal issues, and we've seen that in Darfur. We've seen that in the Congo. We've seen that in Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's no different, right? But this setting people aside or separating people because of simply their racial origin has been really worked on well by the white Europeans for the last couple hundred years.
Yeah, agreed.
What's up, Cal?
I will say that one of my favorite things that's happening right now is that the war cry is "Go fuck yourself." That's one of my favorite things that's happening. I don't want there to be a war, but if there's going to be one, and the war cry is going to be something, I think "Go fuck yourself, Russia" is brilliant and perfect. I agree. Yeah. Condolences for the losses that we've already seen on both sides, because honestly the Russians don't really want to be fighting the war either. They're following orders. It's a government thing, and a lot of the soldiers that have been stopped in some places are not shooting or fighting. They're just No,
look, I think this is interesting. When you think back 3 or 4 generations, and there was much more depth of loyalty to nation, whether it was in Russia, whether it was in Eastern Europe, Germany, you had, because there was such a control of the flow of information. When you look at it now, you can't stop people from having 4 different avenues of information.
Right.
So you can't control their opinions nearly as well.
Right. Because we've talked about that, where we only had like 3 channels. They were all owned by the same person. They were all saying the same shit. So we all believed the same shit. Like that's it. That's what we had.
That's how propaganda works.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. That's how somebody like Hitler, when he's the only voice in the chamber really for years and years leading up to preceding World War II. That's how most of, like, nobody talks about 85% of the German population was Nazi supporters. It's not like the Nazis were a small organization. No, almost 90% of that country supported what was going on. So the idea is, where does your responsibility or culpability really lie? Right. If you believe in some shit that is that horrific.
How far can we push the brain, like the brainwash ideology where this is what you see every day, so this is what you believe? There's a little bit to that, but then there's also, like you were saying, 10% of the population who weren't doing that. So What is it? Because they know somebody or they were related to somebody? What was the reason for a majority, but not all of the population to, you know? And how would we behave if we listened to the same propaganda every day, all day, without, you know, even though our neighbors, we were talking about the other day in reference, again, not comparing this to being a Jewish person in Nazi Germany at all, but also just want to like the sympathizing piece of it. When we're talking about trans kids in Texas, where they just don't have a safe space because required reporters are going to be required to report them, which means that CPS gets involved, takes them away from their parents, and their parents are now criminals, right? There are going to be people who sympathize with the parents and the children, but will still report because of what? Consequences. That's what their friends expect them to do. That's what they've been told to do. Like there's a million reasons for why. And like you were saying, a majority of the population is going to report a Jewish person, and only a small portion of the population is going to help them hide out and keep their mouth shut and take the risk of their own safety being in jeopardy. You know, it's not the same because these people are going to be in jail and it's different, but
well, the principle is the same. Whether
the principle
it's
is the same. Thank you.
So I can give you more. Like whether it's Ahmaud Arbery running through the neighborhood in Georgia, and these three dudes deciding to invoke, what was like civil arrest, or like they were saying they were trying to perform. Citizen's arrest.
Yeah. Citizen's arrest. Yeah.
Citizen's arrest.
This was before they just admitted that they were hateful. This was their original defense of things.
I think the premise is real, though. This is a law that's on the books. The idea that when it came to race, if you saw in this country, if you saw a black man, he wasn't free. He belonged to somebody.
Right.
So if he's running around, so we've got policing that and this ideology of allowing the general public to then involve themselves in policing of the returning of property, which is said black man. So the idea that we always keep in mind this ideology that they are lesser, that we are always comparatively lesser. That's just a specific story they want to tell. We know real history has taught us that the origin of man came from one continent. It looked way more like me than it did Donald Trump. And the idea that we had tons of modern civilizations that were run by women, by people of color, that were built and run by all over this world, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like white men are responsible for the destruction of said things and or the possession, however they took it, of said things, and then claiming that they created it or built it or founded it or whatever. I mean, like that's the legacy of the white man. And anytime anything's threatening, then we have to destroy it. Right? Anytime anybody threatens our way of life, we have to destroy it. So when a guy who doesn't look like us is running through our neighborhood, threatening our way of life, because what? Maybe another guy next week that doesn't look like you is going to be running through your neighborhood too. Like what? Like I don't really get it, you know, for me, from my perspective. But they went from citizen's arrest to, yeah, this is a hate crime. We hate these people, these individuals who look like him. This is a hate crime, because they're trying to get into federal prison when at first they were just denying it and saying, oh, we were just protecting our neighborhood from a criminal. right? They try to put the onus on the victim instead.
Sure. Which in this country is. Let me ask you this, ladies. How many police have you seen? We saw the footage of all the unarmed black men over the last couple of years. This is a good segue into talking about progress in the cannabis industry. But we all saw the horrific. I'll go back to Trayvon. Like we'll start at Zimmerman, right? Like this guy who shot a 17-year-old. And all these horrific images. How many can you tell me have been convicted? Like how many have paid the ultimate price, which was consequences?
Not very many at all.
Not very many.
There's a few, but not very many, and I can't name who they are.
So that's
that thing. It's not enough.
Yeah, and when they do get it, it's not enough. Like the recent one where the police officer, she got like just a few months, I think, or once she gets, paroled and everything.
No. All right. So in the last year, we've seen the murderer of George Floyd be convicted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we've seen that woman in Minnesota who pulled out her.
Yeah.
You're telling me
her gun instead of her taser.
Correct.
First of all, not a mix-up we're going to make.
No. But I don't know. She was convicted. Are you telling me that her sentence wasn't adequate in your opinion? Because I don't know what her sentence was.
Her sentence wasn't adequate. I want to say
let's look it up.
Let's look it up. Let's look. But I don't think her sentence was adequate at all. I think also that she got sympathy from the judge at the end, which was like, don't do that. That's not necessary.
Well, that's right. That's what I want to know is I feel like as a black man in the society that we're seeing some sort of slight move in the barometer of empathy. And I say that from white America because of the response to George Floyd. Right. And when Black Lives Matter started, it really wasn't just a look. In most major cities, or most non-urban environments, you saw way more white people than you did black people marching down the streets for Black Lives Matter. Now that's something, if you go back to the footage of crossing the bridge in Alabama, if you go back to the footage of sit-ins, that was just black people. There was the outlier of a single white person every once in a while, but it seems like the empathy barometer is moving a little bit more.
Yeah, but the judge had empathy for the police.
No. The system has always.
Yeah.
The system has always served itself.
And like publicly sheds a tear. It's just like, come on. Murdered a child. Like, come on.
Well, that's what for me, that's what I thought, the impact to white America for those three men to be charged with, to go through this whole process civilly and to see that play out and to see them try their best in a system that, say, 10 years ago, might have got away with that shit.
Well, they were going to get away with it. They were going to get away with it for sure.
Then to see that our federal government was like, all right, listen, you can't use the word nigger and then shoot somebody and it not automatically be a hate crime.
Right.
Right. So I think that sends a message to, I hope it sends a message to white America that you can't just, we're not in a society anymore where you can police as you would like, socially or officially, right? Like,
well, we're not in that society once you get caught. Like, because literally everybody buried that until that video came out. And then that video came out and then they couldn't bury it anymore. They would have gotten away with it if not for that moron sending his video out to people and one of them having an actual fucking heart in their chest cavities. Oh no, I don't actually think that's even what happened. I think it accidentally got out because somebody maybe might have posted it. I might be speaking out of my ass. Might have posted it as
the third party, the guy who recorded it.
Right.
He sent it out.
I just don't know how it got out public.
This was an angle from him. It was an angle of pride. He said it to
local, okay. So not even a
local. He sent it to a local news organization, as they kept saying they weren't doing anything.
Again, please, somebody answer me the question: why do white men have power? I would like to know that, please. Just anyways. Okay. So before we get into our main topic, our other guest is here. So we definitely want to bring him in and introduce him.
Please, let's talk pop.
And then question to Dwayne, sorry.
I'll add.
Monte writes, killer. She got 2 years for manslaughter.
She got 2 years, but she won't serve 2 years. No way she serves 2 years. Let me bring our hi, Adrian.
2 years is involuntary manslaughter. If you look at what black men, like the accidental shooting from the other side,
it's nothing.
2 years is brutal. That's you're right. If she does 12 to 14 months out of that, and that's not a deterrent to me. Like, you took somebody's life. We won't go too far now, but yes, you are correct.
Broke the judge's heart to give her that 2 years. Anyways,
my point is, we watched four cops choke out Eric Garner. We know there were groups of people who shot and killed Breonna Taylor.
Yep.
We know the murderers across the board since let's say Zimmerman and Trayvon's murderer. And the idea that at least now, that police officer who murdered George Floyd was the first cop in my lifetime that I saw publicly hung out to dry. Do I hope that that's the pattern? Correct, because I don't think an isolated incident is going to work. I think we have to show police officers and white dudes in rural neighborhoods in Georgia that it's going to cost you your life now.
Mm-hmm.
When you used to think it was just like lynching.
Yeah.
They lynch your brother and fucking
pause for a second so we can introduce Adrian real quick. Hi, Adrian. Hey. Welcome to the show. Sorry you joined us. Like, we're still in banter mode, but sometimes our banter gets kind of serious.
And yeah, you're definitely talking about some serious issues.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about you? Everybody knows Jason. He's been here before, and we've introduced him. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name's Adrian. He's here in Colorado. First one being Bambam Productions. It stands for Family Building a Movement. That movement is building community through music and art by utilizing each other's networks to build each other up. And so what we do is with every show that we have or event that we cater, we have some sort of a charitable aspect involved in it, whether it's raising money for with PTSD, whether it's raising money for the Denver DJ School or families with the Aurora Mobile Food Pantry. Everything that we do has some sort of a charitable aspect involved.
Thank you for, first of all, for what you guys are doing. I love that you have a platform like that. Also, I'm absolutely positive that we're going to connect you and Jason when this is over as well, because I already see his face light up when you say all the things.
I knew that exactly. I was like,
I'm amazed we haven't met yet, but I don't do a lot of Front Range hanging out, so
yeah.
That'll change.
We'll get you two connected after the show. Thank you for joining us today. Today, our topic is going to be about social equity. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do we think about it? For anybody just joining the show, this is the Cannabis Closet podcast with Canna Queen. That's me, and MJ. That's her. We have guests today, Adrian and Jason. Both of them are joining us for this topic. It is Black History Month, and so we are definitely sharing. Oh, we just saw Julia in the back. Hey.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey. What's up? We
Now you're
miss
gonna
your
get
face.
the dog excited too.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? So I don't know if we prepared you, Adrian, but we do try to share some Black history facts, especially this month, but we're actually doing it throughout the year for the show, because Black history is American history and world history. You can't have either one of those without Black history. So we're going to highlight as much as we can. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing right now on this little segment right here. You did miss the segment, this segment in white history, but definitely check that out on the playback, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, we may revisit that conversation later.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. So I have one here about the richest girl in the youngest and richest girl in America in 1913. Her name is Sarah Rector, and she was 11 years old. And she was born in 1902 in Taft, Oklahoma. She came from very humble beginnings, later became the wealthiest Black girl in the country at the age of 11. Her family were African-American members of the Muskogee Creek Nation in Indian Territory, and her grandparents had been enslaved by Creek tribe members. But after the Civil War, they were entitled to the land allotments under the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887. When Indian Territory integrated with Oklahoma Territory to form the state of Oklahoma in 1907, hundreds of Black children, referred to back then as Creek Freedom Miners, were each granted 160 acres of land. Rector's allotment was located in the middle of the Glenpool oil field and was initially valued at about $550. That's back in 1907 money, if anybody wants to calculate that. In 1911, her father had decided to lease his daughter's piece of land to a major oil company to help pay the property taxes. And then in 1913, everything changed. According to Searching for Sarah Rector, The Richest Black Girl in America by Tanya Bolden, an independent driller struck oil that started bringing in 2,500 barrels or 105,000 gallons per day. Holy shit. Rector, still being the owner of the land, began earning more than $300 a day, the equivalent of about $7,500 today. So every day she just sitting back earning $7,000. Suddenly she began getting a lot of national attention. I imagine so. From newspapers all over the country. For example, the Kansas City Star published the headline, "Millions to Negro Girl Sarah Rector, 10-year-old, has income of $300 a day from oil." Meanwhile, another newspaper, the Savannah Tribune, published a headline, "Oil Well Produces Neat Income, Negro Girls $112,000 a year." That's a lot back then. Again, a whole lot of money. It's like $7,500 a day. Rector quickly became famous and naturally started receiving all kinds of requests for loans, donations, and even marriage proposals. They were like, "Hey, girl, what's up?" She's 11. They're like,
that was marrying age. Come on.
That's bad. That's a fair. That's fair. Sweet. Oh, anyways, when I look back at our history, we were disgusting. Like,
you say were, sorry.
Yeah, no,
wild, whatever, right? Like,
yeah, like
okay.
Harvey Weinstein is a past tense. Come on now.
Yeah, I know. It's still happening. Okay. Sadly, though, there was a law at the time. Here it is. There is a law at the time.
I'm waiting the whole time. Tragedy. poor girl story.
Yeah. That required wealthy Native Americans and African Americans who were citizens of Indian Territory to be assigned a well-respected white guardian. Oh man, this is gonna roll right into our subject matter right
I
here.
love it. You're right.
As a result, Rector's guardianship was turned over to a white man named T.J. Porter. Of course. But reportedly, W.E.B. Du Bois and the NAACP got involved to protect her wealth and well-being, and were able to successfully do so. She later went on to own one of the first Black-owned auto dealerships in the country and reportedly enjoyed her wealth until the day she died. Good. Yay. Happy ending. The white man didn't win today.
Wait, did her kids and her grandkids and all of that, did they get to keep the money, or did that just kind of?
I would have to look more into that, but I feel like it was 1907, so hopefully she lived to an old enough age where some of those laws had changed.
Yeah.
That's the hope. We could look more into that, though. That would be an interesting story to follow up on.
For sure.
But that little tidbit right there, isn't that always the way? You can't do it by yourself. We're going to get this white dude to help you do it.
And you can give him a fee.
Let us help you.
Yeah, let us help you. Pat on the head, which is the way that I somebody can correct me all day long but this is the way that I look at Colorado's social equity laws. That's the way they look to me.
Referring to in the cannabis space?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I agree with you to a certain point. Right?
Yes, please tell me.
So when I was in high school, I was a stubborn kid, a stubborn person. I was like, hey man, I want to do this. I want to do this shit all on my own. I don't need your. I want to go to school. I don't need your scholarships because I'm brown. I don't need this, that, other. And then I quickly realized after paying for it myself, and after doing and jumping through all these hoops, it's like there's a reason those things exist.
Right.
Because we've been, as a people, as a community, set back, and the Black community set back even further. And so it's like these things exist for a reason, so why not take advantage of them? But at the same time, when you're looking at the social equity within the cannabis space, and you look at how drastically like weighted it is towards white people and who the owners are and what they're doing, and the other people who have been mostly affected by the war on drugs and how they are not allowed in the space because they have this, that, and the other. It seems as if that the social equity programs are trying to elevate us into that space.
Right, but are they trying hard enough?
Right. Is it being done properly?
Right.
And
I think social equity programs are great. I agree with you on that. I think that we should, but our social equity program has, like the one in our cannabis space, has this caveat that you have to like half own your shit. And my question is, can't we just make the cannabis space more accessible to the individuals who want access, not just rich people and not just white people?
We can. I would love to interject for a second in the sense that Colorado has certainly given us an ideology of where low barriers of entry can be. As far as cost, now those barriers of entry are certainly not attached to those who were most affected by the war on drugs. Those who might have got a drug charge and now can't necessarily play the game or be an owner or have to go through tons of extra crap legally to procure your license in this state. And that's still something you can do. There are 90% of the states that just exclude you right off the top because you are somebody who has something in your history.
Right.
What I'd say, I'll declare the oldest man in the room. What I'd say is like like lots of other shit over the last, say, since Jim Crow and Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, is this ideology of so we talk social equity is today's affirmative action.
Right.
I just dropped that mic, right?
Yes.
So as a poor kid, we had, we had two sides of it. You're a poor black kid. You want the affirmity of inclusion. I want the opportunity of what they got over there on the other side of the tracks. I can see the other side of the tracks. It ain't like there's a wall or I can see it. Right. So I benefited from that. Like I got a bus ride to the other side of town, and I was the token but it didn't serve my community. It was affirmative for me, but it didn't create any solutions for my community. So I learned that socially, not a lot changed for the black community. They've changed for black individuals socially, but it did not change for the black community.
Right.
And that's why I look at Colorado, like we said, we were talking the other day, going all the way back to Massachusetts social equity in provisions. Most of these people didn't have regular black folk in the room trying to help them write the legislation, and that's the problem. The idea is
problem in every state. I think
there's no setup for small business owners to get support, especially somebody who's never been in business before. So you want to take me from a legacy standpoint where I've had experience in the plant, or I know distribution, or I know how to make edibles, or whatever it is. My part, I can grow the fire. The idea is I can't sit around and sit idle until the state licensing board decides to get me the go-ahead to be a business. Meanwhile, I have to play a regular small business role, like paying for your all the licensing and overhead and real estate and all the things that come into play when it comes to who you are as a small business.
Right.
We're not even doing black people the service of educating you on that. Right. So we're not even really having the conversation before we exclude you by creating the law. And I know that because I stood in my own capital and helped participate in that law creation portion. But I don't see, even in the most modern social equity legislation, I don't see tools put in place. California has done some pretty good regional support. I think Illinois, there was one alderman woman who figured out that she could, under the guise of marginalization and criminalization under the war on drugs, that her district could take chunks of money right out of the cannabis pot in their state and then redistribute that through the black community based on reparations for opportunities in housing. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's one alderman in one precinct. When we talk about the billions and billions of dollars that this industry creates a year, I don't think it's much to ask for real consideration.
Yeah.
So that's where I see, even in Colorado, they kind of force you to have a partner. Okay, we'll take you from the lower standings of your financial qualifications under this much, or so your support is you have to partner with somebody who's already a license holder in our state. Well, that puts you in a very dangerous position, because now I'm in debt to and partnership with my competition.
Right.
And so
it's like 51-49. I think is the lean.
I think
yeah. But to your point, like we're requesting like money. We're asking them, hey, can we have some of your pie? No one, historically speaking, they never gave up anything freely. And so no one's coming to save us. No one's coming to give us this opportunity to have this bread. And what it is incumbent upon us at this point to do for self, and to,
Right.
while yes, they have the billions and billions of dollars that can be allocated to minorities to start and operate their businesses, we need to do it within our own communities to be able to build each other up to get to that status, whether it's finding funding for our own shops, whether it's finding funding for our own businesses, and really be able to elevate ourselves, because no one's coming to save us.
No,
And
you're absolutely right about that.
get out of the mentality of, well, there's money out there, so we need to figure out a way to get it, in a sense of asking government agencies, asking, any of these people that aren't within our community or don't look like us.
Mm-hmm.
There are people right now in organizations such as I went to a Metro Deep Gala on Saturday that are discussing just this. And it's getting to the point of where there are organizations out there, while we may not like how they operate, so, there may be some things that we're not, we don't really feel like, oh yeah, NAACP does this, or this organization does this and that. And what the main focus of that gala was, get in there. If you don't like it, get in there and change it.
Amen, brother.
Get in there and be that catalyst that says, all right, well, NAACP's been doing X, Y, and Z. Black Lives Matter doing X, Y, and Z. That we're not, we don't get down with it like that. Whatever the organization may be, whether it's the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, whether it's Green Latinos, which I'm a member of, it's getting in there and changing it and saying, hey, this isn't going to work. This doesn't work for our community. I am in the streets. I am with my community, so I know what they're looking for, and then actually going and being involved in changing it, and then finding the funding and finding the money within our community. Because what is it, $1.2 trillion the Black community spends annually, and how many, and give or take, just on just their economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their economy is around 1.2 trillion annually. How much of that money is being spent within the community?
None. Well, I talk about this all the time. This is my favorite thing. I talk about this almost every time the subject comes up. You know what I'm going to say, MJ? You know what I'm going to say? Killer Mike did that whole docuseries, and he did that first episode on how the dollar stays in a community, and everybody else gets days or weeks, but Black communities get hours to keep a dollar, and then it goes out. And so that is one of my questions, is that shouldn't our programs also include like a caveat, like if you don't live and commune in this neighborhood, then you can't own a business in this neighborhood? Because what's happening is, in the cannabis industry especially, there, first of all, in Colorado specifically, there are only 9 black owned dispensaries in the state, and only one that I know of is owned. I think she owns it maybe solely. I have to do more research into that. I think a lot of them are co-owner. So, I mean, that's fine. There's still only 9 in the whole state of Colorado, and we've been in this business for some time. That's a ridiculous number.
You know how many licensed dispensaries there are in the state of Colorado?
I want to say that the white-owned dispensaries were 1,300 plus.
Yeah,
so
it's a staggering number. Well,
yeah.
It's a staggering number.
So my question is can't we, like, of course we can do whatever we want. We just need to we need to be participatory in the process, because there are people who don't understand our communities or our industry that are making the rules around what we're doing. But having said that, can't there be something in the regulation, something in the, and that makes it like that? You can't just keep taking these dollars out of these communities while you're making your money on their backs.
So I'm going to jump in here for a second, because there's a lot that's been said that I want to unpack.
Sorry.
No, Adrian, I want to let him know. It's not as if I believe the Black culture is sitting around waiting for their 40 acres and a mule. I think intelligent Black people know that
Oh no, not at all.
They've lied from day one. Although we were deserved and promised pennies on the dollar for the work that we did in the foundation of this country, I now look at the mechanism of, I'm from the greater Philadelphia area. There's a real system at play when you can look at the registered businesses in the city of Philadelphia, and there are less than 3% Black registered businesses in a city that is 49% Black. Now we talk about why the dollar doesn't stay in our neighborhood. It's because you got to know where to shop. Now, if you know the parallel market of legacy or illicit or whatever you want to call it, off market, gray market, whatever, you know that there's just as many vending opportunities. There's just as many hot shit going on in that parallel universe. Why can't we find a way to create to drop the barriers so we can all play the same game?
Like, we definitely can do that. Like, listen, I feel like Colorado is creating like a class system within our ownership even. Like, it's less expensive to get a delivery driver license, right? So then we're seeing more social equity license in the delivery space, where it's just like, oh, well, you can't own a dispensary, you can't run a dispensary, but you can transport it for us. We'll let you do security.
Absolutely.
Compared to what they were initially starting off at. So what they wanted to do with the social equity with the delivery service is they wanted to make sure that you had to have an existing license to even be considered to deliver. And so I sat in on a couple of Denver City Council meetings regarding this. And
I'm going to pause you for a second. I want everybody to listen what he just said. Can you repeat where you were, please? And
he's not saying driver's license.
No, I was listening in on some Zooms for the Denver City Council regarding the social equity program and licenses for delivery service, and their main goal was to have initially you had to own a dispensary license already or a grow license already in order to have the delivery license. And what Candy C. DeBaca was saying, and she's generally on the opposite side of Denver City Council because she takes social equity and people's identities into consideration, is that if you do that, you're already eliminating almost all minority candidates to have a delivery license already right off the bat. So how is that equitable? And so, but going from what they wanted to what we got, while it's not the best, we still have moves to make.
That's true.
Than what they were offering initially.
But to me, I'm sorry, that's the game. We set the bar so shitty that we're now happy that we're now happy. I get a piece of stale crumbs. Oh, thank you. Nah, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and
I was going to say we're happy to have it, but also, can't you make the bar of entry?
I don't know that I'm going to say I'm happy to have it.
Council that look like us and feel and think the same way as us. And so, in order to make actual and effect actual change, we need to vote these people in to make sure on a local level that whoever's deciding this are from our communities. They're not people that just came in, popped up, and like whoop de whoop. I live in Elaria, Swansea, but I just bought all. I'm a developer, and now I'm taking over, and now my friends are going to vote for me, and now I'm making decisions in mostly minority areas, where these people are being affected, but they don't care because none of those people look like them that are in their social groups that they even interact with.
Right. What I meant, I just want to clarify. I don't mean, hey, I'm happy for your crumbs. What I mean is, thank you for having a barrier of entry that I can cross over. But can't you have that for everything else? Like, if you can have it for this part of the industry, then you are capable of creating a way for people to get into the other parts of the industry by making it so you don't have to be a gazillionaire to get in, or partnered with one of the white dispensary owners in the state of Colorado.
I don't tell me a state where we're actually addressing this from the front end, where we're saying if we know people that look like Adrian and I are marginalized and have been criminalized over this plant and carry a much higher burden of conviction of contact of some sort for decades. How are we state to state? And I've been in dozen now, right? Mm-hmm. State to state. How are we still having the same exclusionary conversation about excluding people who have previous cannabis knowledge?
Business experience.
Prior to it being legal, right?
I'm saying I want to hire the guy that knows how to grow. I want to hire, like, I don't give a shit about his record because that's bullshit.
Right. The real ones you can't touch in 99% of the states because they have a convicted history. And that's just unacceptable to me. And we're still, so we want to come in and MJ, what's up?
We're doing a little 420 dance because it's 420 on the West Coast. Our little alarm went off.
I just think we're literally putting clothes on the elephant in the room. And at the end of the day, we're now having social equity conversations while we still roll out new legislation state to state and adult use, right? And yet only California and Nevada and a couple of states. I'm really disappointed in my state of Colorado in how lame duck they've been. They led adult use, and then they've been horrible. And I think Denver being such an anomaly as a city in the country, right? Like, it's not like there's a real deep hood population anywhere you can go start addressing recovery. You can go down to the far end of Colfax and you can go into some neighborhoods that need their communities uplifted and have been over-policed and have dealt with problems for generations.
Right.
But that's not the mechanism that's occurring even in Denver right now, right? Mm-hmm. And we have these great chances, like we talked about earlier, to have some real improved engagement. And I don't, so I'm not unhappy with the progress we've made. I am appreciative of any progress we can attain comparative to day one. But if I don't, like you know me, I believe this industry owes a debt of gratitude, right? Like, I know when I started in this game, it was really because there were people dying of AIDS in Cali, and that there were advocates that were really pushing for plant medicine in California. And so it started for me in the early 2000s, and it really became, I had sick children, I had sick old people, I have buried tons of friends. This plant means the world to me. I don't want to just simplify it as a corporation, but I want everybody to have access. And that means from a job standpoint, from a healthcare standpoint, from a financial standpoint, And,
I mean, there's so, like what you're describing is okay for everybody to have access and for their health benefits. We're eliminating medical marijuana facilities through legislation. Like,
I can't stand it.
So we're so mad about it. It's
Jared Polis, you have got an open invite to come tell us why you're signing this legislation into law. We would like to know why you're destroying our medical program.
Well, we know, right? It's about
we know
from medical, like they do recreational, and push that. And effectively, what they're doing is pushing everything back again to the black market, because people aren't going to go and pay, amount of percentage in taxes just to buy an egg. What's just not going to happen. But
we will say the underground market. Everybody knows that we don't put no negative effects on that, because the underground market
knows. Not everybody knows.
Look, because they're giving us our medicine now, because the medical prices in
Right.
these dispensaries are already ridiculous. Now you're pushing people into, like you said, into the
Well,
adult
because
use.
here's what they do is because in order for some medicals to get wholesale, they can go buy from a recreational facility that wholesales product. But we don't have medical wholesale. You can medically wholesale unless you have an infused product license or a grow license, or a dispensary license. So you can't just have a grow, and we can't access, medical can't access wholesale product without paying the double tax. So then by the time it gets back to medical, they now have to raise the pricing, and they can't afford it. They can't afford to do it. I've already had a medical facility close down because of this, because they can only do so much, without bringing in other product.
Yeah. So
it's not a good system. They're not making.
Unfortunate.
Isn't it funny that we all gained access to this plant by voting on a constitutional change that said this?
Yeah, but they're just
plan-
going to destroy the business model of it. So we still have that constitutional right to have. They'll argue you still have the constitutional right to have your medicine, but there's nowhere to buy it. So you're just going to have to go pick it up at the. Because we know you guys are saying that you have migraines. We know what you're doing. Like, right? That's how they think of us. They still think of us that way. They think of us as like
the recreational tax, the adult use tax. Like if I have to go pay, shop in an adult use store as a medical patient and a local or a resident of Colorado, I should not have to pay adult use taxes.
So that was my complaint from the very beginning. Was I'm disappointed in Colorado in the sense that we have been the second longest adult use state. We've really been the most progressive in trying to set forth an example. And I just think we've had chances to address social equity. And in the state, I'm going to be honest with you, it's a different purview than, say, social equity in California or Pennsylvania or New Jersey or Florida. I mean, it's just that some of the neighborhoods look different and have been affected entirely differently. But I still say if we're not talking about legislation that puts the people who had the experience in the game before us and gives them decision-making power and gives them financial support, like how many venture capitalists have access to the licensing process in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Delaware right now? I can tell you at least 12 personally. Like, so money isn't necessarily hard for certain people in certain rooms to get. But if you're a brother who's been slinging the same shit like even if you have a good legacy background in any one of those states, for you to get access to a couple $100,000 to start the process is way harder than somebody who's been privileged.
right.
So, I'd like to see funds create like siphoning of small amounts created right off the bat. If you're going to let medical come into your state, we're going to set up a social equity fund. And that's going to be for a group of people to determine how to work through that for access. Never mind like pre-application, because I'm tired of even the successful large-scale Black businesses in this country are forcing people into giving up half their equity. Half. And I may give up. I wouldn't mind the choice of giving up half my equity to be a millionaire, but I don't want to be forced into that. If I want to start small and scale, I want that opportunity. If my people have been doing the same shit in the same neighborhood for generations in Compton or North Philly, or I want the opportunity to establish that business as legitimately as any of the other license holders in the state. Right. And we're not like that's real equity to me. And we're not like how to support those people who've been held back the most. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
especially when you're reporting that the revenue from the industry is in the billions.
But they ain't reporting that for me and you. They're reporting that for the next venture capitalist.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about like what another here's another problem that there's a couple. There's two things. Number one, there's a little bit of this loophole thing that we've talked about before, where people who look like me are minorities and can get social equity licenses. But like then, my white husband runs the place, right? So there's that. And then the other issue that I've come across, which one of our at least guests may or may not have experience in, is that we go and we hire the individuals we're supposed to hire to get the points for social equity, right? And then when we no longer need those individuals, they no longer have a place. They're now hard to work with. Was that NFL coach? What's his name? He's very difficult to work with, apparently.
We won't use names, but there's a great example right now of a gentleman who was smart enough and capable enough to not sign an NDA and leave millions. He left millions of dollars on the table because he wouldn't sign that NDA, so he could have truth to his conversation later. That's all. Just truth to his conversation.
Yeah.
That's an expensive lesson. That, like, I don't know any other black people who can leave millions on the table so they can have a truthful conversation later when a motherfucker ain't in the room. That's all I'm saying. And so when you talk about, look, they're trying to sell us today in this society that, oh, we should feel bad for poor white men and, you know, they're poor white ladies. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for anybody who's not indigenous or has experienced the kind of direct oppression the black people in this country have faced. Mm-hmm. I'm learning the immigrant story, and the modern immigrant story is of Latinx or Hispanic origin, and the previous generations of immigration stories have been Eastern European. They've been Italian, and they've been shat on by the ruling white class in this country. Mm-hmm. But nobody has paid the price that the indigenous inhabitants of this continent paid, or the slaves that were brought over in droves have played. Right. So I do believe, and that's where, for me, like we talked about affirmative action, I do believe there's a necessity for real hardline legislation. But who makes those quotas? Who makes those numbers? When you look back to affirmative action, there was no black people in the room to say, well, how do we cure the issues of social black norm, right? Like what the status quo in my hood was for the last 3 generations. They just sat back, and even today, I mean no disrespect when I say white people sit back and try to figure out ways in which they could make my neighborhood better. Just come. We know plenty of smart black people. We know plenty of smart Hispanics. Please come ask us.
Right.
To participate. It's not less in support. But I've recently learned, you know, there's a huge difference in my world today, and I said this between allies. I think all causes need allies. I think black people in today's market need allies. We're talking about making progress. We've certainly made progress in ownership along the way. Although shout out to Wanda and Simply Pure, like she's an OG. Yes. She is an OG who's owned a license in the state from the beginning, and she's a veteran. She's a true American, and like her husband, they're OGs in this game, right?
Right.
Still, they're less than 1% of ownership in the state, and less than 3% ownership across the country.
Yeah.
And we have to do better.
We do. I just want to say, speaking from, I can't speak for all white women, but speaking from being a white woman and also having been a poor white woman, I still fucking look, I'm not even going to be humble about it. I got pretty privilege and I got white privilege, and I'm a woman. I got white woman privilege. And those are things that really exist. People will give me $20 for gas because they don't want to see a white woman cry and not know how to get home. People will I've told this story recently. I have a couple of recent stories where my foot felt a little heavier than it maybe should have been, or something of that effect. And I get those lights in my rear view. I've literally reached over to my glove compartment and opened it and shuffled through it, and no reaction whatsoever. None whatsoever. They're not afraid of white women, okay? I got pulled over because I had these fucking cars with their running lights. I had my running lights on. I thought I had my headlights on. Realized real quick I didn't have my headlights on. Turned them on like less than a minute from my house. Cop caught me. He pulled me over. I turned him on before he even turned his lights on. But let me tell you, when those blue lights were in my rear view, okay, and lighting up my car, there was a puff of smoke coming out of my face. I had a full blunt to my face. And I answered all of the questions wrong. I didn't shut the fuck up Friday. No, I told him everything. I told him that, yes, I consume marijuana, that, yes, I said I had just left my house and had a couple puffs before I left my house. You don't fucking tell them that you smoked it before you got behind the wheel of a car. No, you know what? He looked at me and he said, your car smells like marijuana. Were you smoking your car? And I go, no, I was just smoking at my house. And I just had a couple puffs before I operated this vehicle, right? And he says to me, he looks me in my face. First of all, look, I have a tattoo on my face that signifies that, yes, I do. In fact, this whole side of my face is on the driver's side of my car. So he asks me the question. I say, yes, I do. Just did it at my house. Didn't say I did in my car, even though I know when he lit me up, he saw smoke in my car. He definitely did. I was turning on the vent and shit, spray, whatever. Your car smells like marijuana. And I said, oh, it's probably because of that. And he said, you can't. It's not legal to drive under the influence of marijuana. And I looked at him and said, oh, I'm not. And he gave me a fucking warning and his card and told me not to drive under the influence of marijuana and let me go on my merry fucking way. And that is my story.
So,
I mean, that could have gone totally differently for me. I am in Colorado. I am in my small town in Colorado, but that could have really gone differently for me. Those two things could have still been a factor against me if I didn't look like how I look. And also, just side note, consumption is not impairment. It's not. I was not driving under the influence of marijuana. Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
So just kind of going a little bit back towards what Jason was saying, because I gotta get out of here in just a couple.
Oh
minutes.
yes, sorry. Yeah, I did take it on a tangent.
It's okay.
I do that.
Right now, what I'm in the process of doing is trying to start a coalition that crosses cultural barriers. We're bringing people from the Black community. We're bringing people in from the Asian community. We're bringing people in from the Hispanic community to hopefully coalesce around a simple concept and idea of we have to do it ourselves,
right?
Because no one is coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves, and we have to work together and stop comparing atrocities,
right?
Comparing whose plight is worse, and way we can really actually get the work done, because
right.
and stuff that has happened to all of our communities in different scales and different ways for different periods of time. And what we're doing is not necessarily moving past it with a blind eye, because if you don't know your past, you're doomed to repeat it. But it's more so, how are we going to hit the ground running as a united group of different cultures? And what are our differences? And this goes to what are our differences, and how are we the same? Recognizing them, and then moving towards just reconciling that with money, with dollars, and spending within these communities. And so I would love to talk to anybody about this further. I'd love to have all of you come on to my radio show, at least at some point, together, separate, however, so we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for me in this conversation. I didn't necessarily know where it was gonna
we get excited around here.
But no, it's something that Jason, you've really opened my eyes to a couple of things, man. As far as just what you're saying is, yes, there does need to be legislation. Absolutely, there does need to be legislation that enables us to take advantage of some of the opportunities that our counterparts already have just embedded in them.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed them by the legislation. They were guaranteed access to licenses that other people have been specifically written out of. I mean, that's only through the laws written.
Yeah.
Exactly. Farrah mentioned earlier, you have set asides across this whole country about, including minorities, people of color, access, but there's not a single lawsuit or a legal support once you get that Willy Wonka ticket that you got to stay with the same team. What got you in the door doesn't necessarily mean you have it after the door's open. And I would like to just remind Adrian that we as people of color of all assets in this country have done it already. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've already created our own infrastructure, our own college systems. We've already had our own Wall Street. Because we were forced into those avenues. I know we can do it. Like I said, I see black MSO owners out there create millionaires every day.
Yep.
Through ownership, just forcing you and I to decide whether we want to give up half our equity or not. And I would rather teach my son that we can create an environment that you don't have to give up before you get it.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Well, and like you were even saying, like, people in our own community that do have money that are able to help out, not gouging them because you can, not 50% because you can. No, this is utilizing each other's networks to build each other up, and it's at the essence of everything that, like, that I'm putting forth in my existence. Is I'm a huge team player, and I believe in that to my core. And so, and I've seen it happen. You've seen it happen. You're already talking Black Wall Street. Like, that was a real deal thing. The Tulsa race riots, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, had a gigantic, huge, large Black community that was doing it and doing it well and doing it but doing it better than a lot of the areas around. And then, but that's also built on indigenous tiers, and so not necessarily the Black Wall Street is built on that, but the
I get you. Look, at the end of the day, you're gonna say the colonizer paved that road.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did.
And so I'll leave it with this, is that I invite everybody from any community to come in and have a discussion on how we can push this forward.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, man, I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I know as a collective, we can figure it out.
Yeah, come up with the answers together. I agree with that. Tell us before you leave where we can find you and where people can connect with you.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at FAMBAM5280, FAMBAM5280. You could also find me at Garcia Grind on Instagram. And you can message me through there, and I'll be able to get back in touch with you. I'm usually pretty responsive. And I'd love to see you all here in the near future on my show, please.
I'm just going to officially invite you back to, have more conversations. Sometimes we have fun conversations. Sometimes we get into the nitty gritty of stuff. So I really appreciate you coming through with some real great point of view, and the community work that you're doing is amazing. We definitely would like to talk to you more about getting involved with that as well. And I'll definitely connect you too, because I feel like you will have miles to talk about together.
He'll be seeing me in person sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get it all together. But really appreciate you coming on the show, and look forward to getting together again on your show, on our show, and in the future to do some other business as well, I'm sure.
Awesome. I appreciate everyone's time, and I hope y'all have a great evening. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You too. Thanks,
Nice
Adrian.
to look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, have a good one.
Peace, fam.
All right. So this is a good time to take a little and a word from our sponsors. So
Repack your bowl and
pack it up, light it up. First, if you enjoy King Palms the way I enjoy King Palms, go to kingpalm.com and use KPTCCP Feb 15. Today is the last day with that code. I'm going to create a new one probably tomorrow, definitely by Wednesday's show. You can get 15% off using that code. And I just made $7 off of myself because my wonderful husband bought me a 180 pack here and used my discount code. So he got 15% off. He got 15% off of that. And then I also made a little money off of it. So it's fantastic.
Also, the little ways to work.
Revenue streams. That's the new way. Multiple
revenue streams.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Speaking of which, if you are looking for cannabis consulting and or education, we do both. CQLC Cannabis Consulting and Education. You can find us at www.cq-llc.com, or you can email us customer service cqllc@gmail.com. Or you can call us 970-426-5985. That also takes text messages, which today was really funny. I got a call before the show with somebody inquiring about the responsible vendor training. So CQLC was recently approved by the Marijuana Enforcement Division in the state of Colorado to teach responsible vendor training. And in order to become responsible vendor training certified, your team has to take that class through a certified vendor, which is us. So I had somebody call today and ask about it and ask me a couple questions, and I was answering the questions. And they happened to tell me that they got their license on a social equity license. And I was like, that's interesting because that's what we're talking about on my podcast today, and told them about the podcast. And then she kept telling me more and more about what she had going on. And I was like, I am so interested in this story, but also I have to get ready for this show.
Did you get her info?
I do have her info. I have her email and everything. And also she found the link to our show. So hopefully she tunes in and catches this on the playback, or maybe she's in here live. We can't tell unless you comment. But if you're interested in getting your responsible vendor training, go ahead and give us a call and we'll get you all set up for that. I'll send you a demo and everything. And we can chat about it. So yeah, it was an interesting conversation. So then she texted me to tell me that she found the link to our show, and but part of her text didn't make any sense because she was watching a TV show and it was a talk to text. So it only said, I found the link. And then it said something that just didn't make sense because it was repeating what the TV had said. And it did it like twice. And then she was like, I'm watching this show. And then she's so interesting. I was like, you are great. I really hope that she chooses us. And I will give her all the reasons to do so because she's fantastic. Her whole personality was fantastic.
Did she tell you what avenue? License?
Delivery. She's going to do a delivery license. There's much to talk about with her. There was a couple of interesting tidbits that I don't feel like I should repeat publicly on the air right now, but there's some interesting tidbits.
We'll have to have her in on a show, as a guest for sure.
Yeah, for sure. She was very interesting. I would love to have her on the show. But I would also love to have her business because she seems like she'd be fun to work with and teach. Anyway, so it was very interesting. So anyway, you guys can text that number too if you are interested. So back to the topic at hand. There are some definite problems with different social equity licenses or regulation within points within the regulation. I don't think that they go far enough for the most part. Like you said, there's a couple of states that are doing things, the right way. But I mean, I
I
don't
said
know
that.
how well, you said California, you mentioned California and Nevada, right? And so, I mean, but like, like, I feel like, because I do think of it like affirmative action. And I remember like affirmative action, I always kind of felt like it was bullshit that we had to have a law to hire Black people. Like, what? It didn't make sense to me because that's not how I think. I always think that, like, why wouldn't you just hire them? Like, why would
But we had to have a war to free Black people. So
that's true.
So in that context, a law to hire, brother.
Right. I mean, I was a young kid, and I'm just saying, as a young kid, it just didn't make sense to me why we had like to have because as a kid, I always from a little white girl's perspective, I saw my Black classmates as my friends and my equals, so I didn't consider that as like a thing that was an actual problem, but it is an actual problem, and not just in cannabis industry, in all industries.
Yeah, no, I guess my biggest issue, and I heard a little bit of it in Adrian's voice and some of the statements he made about it's not about what the individual does, because I certainly didn't feel like I needed affirmative action coming out of high school and on my SATs, and so it wasn't really like I understood being your own man. Look, I appreciate that, but to say that the Black community on a whole hasn't suffered in a way that it needs to be reinvested in is telling yourself you're lying, like at the end of the day. So that's where I say, okay, I do believe that we are responsible for ourselves ultimately, and we need to care for ourselves. And that's why we have historically Black colleges, and we have more and more investment in that now by us, because ain't nobody else coming along to do that shit.
So I know
that's not a solution. It doesn't stop me from being the token in the room. My biggest issue is that's not a solution. That we still today, even with the best state that has social equity, is still just creating a token situation. It's not addressing the problem full on.
Right, which is that there's no Black ownership in the industry, essentially. And then we have programs that require you to do like a 50% ownership share with somebody else in order to get your foot in the door. I just want to speak to, Adrian's not here to speak to what you said. So I do want to be able to like just say that he will have an opportunity to come back and address that if he so chooses once he watches the episode in full.
I don't mean him specifically. He just
I know. I just I like
that
to.
made me think about it. Yeah. I agree with you.
So like that's coming from, like, what I said was coming from like a white girl's perspective, but like I was so naive as a child. I didn't even realize that there was like this separation. Like I was super naive. I was kind of well traveled as a child because my parents were in the military and we went overseas. And so like I just like, what I saw was everybody was together all the time. And like my friends, their dads were also, and sometimes their moms too, were also in the military, and we had this like different lifestyle, and it was all of us living in the same apartment. Like it just didn't feel separate, but that's not how the world was working, and that's also from my perspective. I didn't even realize until I was much older that a lot of Black people just put on a different mask for being around white people. So honestly, I feel like a lot of what I experienced was from the view of having a lot of them having a mask on around me and just behaving in a way to not frighten the little white girl. You know what I'm saying? And I hate to say that, but
I mean,
I know it's not on purpose. No, I know that. It's absolutely, first of all, a lot of, you that's learned behavior because it's a necessary learned behavior. Like
everybody knows who Emmett Till was, right?
Right. Yes. Well,
And
not
that was a
everybody. So go ahead and tell us, like,
That was a 14-year-old boy who was even in the time. This was late 30s, early 40s, maybe. He was an Illinois-born, Chicago-born black child who went to go visit his family in the South, where all black people came from, because that's where slavery ended. But he was essentially accused of, at the very least, catcalling or whistling at the very most, flirting with and putting his hand on.
right.
A white cashier who was the wife of the store owner.
She has since said that never happened. None of those things happened.
It's not on tape. Nobody, like, there's people who argue both sides of that.
Right.
She said he never put his hand on her. She never said that nothing happened. But regardless, this is a 14-year-old boy who that night was kidnapped from his grandfather's home, was held hostage and tortured for a day, was beaten, eventually shot in the head, had a cotton gin fan tied around his neck, and he was dragged down to the river and thrown in the river, where they then recovered his body 3 days later. So I think sociologically we've come a long way, but we're still very aware of where we were just a short time ago.
I mean, yeah, I guess more people in our society are not okay with what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, because essentially he was attacked by a group of white men and killed for just existing and not doing anything wrong.
Right.
And there's no legitimate witness accounts to any of that story with Emmett Till. There's
nobody was in the store with him.
There's nobody that could prove that. And
it's her word versus his.
Yeah, right. So, point is this for existing? It's for existing. Black men still die, and women still die for existing, and somehow they've there's a little bit of legalization to it, like when we talk about Amir Locke, who you know what I'm saying, like where police can bust into this man's house and murder him, then lie about it, even though they have their cams on. We could see that that's not what happened. They murder him for sleeping on his couch. He wasn't on the warrant. They argued to get a no-knock warrant after initially it wasn't supposed to be a no-knock warrant. They break into this man's house who legally owned a firearm, but did not point it at anybody because he did not have a chance to do that. It was seconds. It was seconds. These things happen within seconds, and then these men call it self-defense. You can kill a child in seconds.
You mean white men?
Yes, white men call it self-defense. You can kill a child within seconds for having a toy gun in his hand that you can buy at Walmart and not be held accountable for that, and call it self-defense.
That police officer that pulled up in the passenger side of that car really believed his life was in threat.
Didn't even give a command. You guys, just to I did law enforcement in the Navy, and when I was doing a lot of people go, okay, well, that's, especially people in the military be like, well, that's force protection, right? Because we do a lot of force protection and overseas stuff, which means that we're protecting the country from terrorism, right? But when I started in the Navy, we went through police training. We went through all of the police training. We did all of the things that police officers would do. We did those things on base and off base when it came to when a sailor was involved, right? And when we are intending to use any of our force, any of it, especially physical force, we are required to absolutely announce and give an individual an opportunity to cooperate and do what they're supposed to do. we are supposed to not only announce our presence, but also announce what is going to happen next. If you give you an opportunity to put the weapon down, give you an opportunity to follow a command. And those opportunities are not being given to individuals who are just dying for falling asleep in front of their TV on the couch. Come on. I do this all the time. This would never happen to me.
Breonna Taylor was the same thing, right? Like that.
And they still have not faced the consequences for that.
A no-knock warrant on the wrong address, defending their home, and like
after shooting up the building. So she's not even the only victim in that building. She's just only the dead person in that building.
Right. But George Zimmerman shot Trayvon because he was scared, and then started tracking him and started to get his ass kicked as an adult and shot a young man. Listen, I think you're talking about bigger social issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for me, show me a place where we're addressing. When I compare the strides that LGBTQ.
Yes, we've talked about this before, and it's not a diss or anything. Really
I'm
happy
not here to
that we're
offend
seeing,
anybody. I'm here to praise that. When I look at what opportunities and the suffering that they've had to go through and continue to go through, but what opportunities they've gained in such a relatively small amount of time. Correct. Sociologically, compared to identifying in
like society. Stonewall was like in 1980s, correct? Am I correct about that? Or is it earlier than that?
70s. It was in the 70s.
It was the late 70s, early 80s. Okay, yeah, okay. And then that, I mean, when we talk about an evolution of a movement, that's pretty fast. I mean, we're still evolving. We still see things like what's happening in Texas for trans kids. We still see those things, but generally speaking, you're right. This movement has made excellent strides, and still,
my whole life, I never saw. I don't remember seeing memorable Black characters till Bill Cosby.
Yeah,
whether that was Fat Albert when I was younger. Or as an adult, and I hate using the name, but
I mean, we have to agree that he was a positive presence in. Yeah, I mean, like what he did, that can't be negated just because of what he's done.
He's the one example I had. That's unfortunate, right? Like I had very few other in media outlets to show me that we were just as capable, because that wasn't what I was being told in my neighborhood.
Right.
And so, when I look at the speed of which they have representation in media today is pretty.
The community, when we talk about community and being together and really, what does that say, or where does that leave us when because we're all so divided, even just from community to community, from state to state, as far as but as when you're talking about LGBTQ, the different way that people stay connected. I don't know,
I mean, it could be a thing of technology, but I think also it's a thing of seeing, like when you see the civil rights movement, a lot of the tactics and techniques and things of that nature were used when we talk about Stonewall and when we talk about the LGBTQ community. So I feel like a lot of those lessons were picked up and learned through like the civil rights movement, which I think is still ongoing if we're really going to be real about it, because again, if black men and women were equal in this country, then we wouldn't have to have a conversation about why they're being arrested at larger rates, being murdered by police officers. You're not the judge, jury,
You
and
brought this up
executioner.
here. Well, the football. We'll bring the football coach into this.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. The employment base in that business model is 75% black people, black men.
Yep.
There's 36 professional teams.
Mm-hmm.
None of them owned by a black man. When you start to, I don't want to call it a plantation, but when you start to realize how the hierarchy of power funnels down and who's doing what. And we were talking about that black coach that had the balls to stand up for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And do you know he would have been Colin Kaepernick if it weren't for the only black coach left in the league hired him. He had the chance to be blackballed, just like to be 86, to be just like and I think, man, this is modern. This is today.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still a multitude of standards depending on who you are, even as a black man. I'm sure some of the best rappers I've heard have talked about, even a black man in a Mercedes is still a nigga in a coupe. And I mean, that's the reality of where we live in America and how white Europeans see us, that you can be successful as a token. But not as a rule. I want solutions as equity. Equity means equal. And
and that's not what I don't think that's what we see.
Oh no.
At all. And then when we talk about this, the NFL, right? But think about the cannabis industry. This is what I'm saying. They are making a class system out of the jobs that you can have in cannabis. So right. So it's like the hands-on stuff, right? The cultivation, the dispensaries, the processors, the kitchens, right? These are all very high priced items that only a few can afford to get into, right? And then we got hospitality and delivery drivers, and then we got the teachers, because my license was very, very inexpensive. Oh, and then ancillary workers. You guys can be at the bottom of that, right? And do what you do, right? We won't even bother with you. And so I just feel like there's this like whole class system. When you talk about how a majority of the players in the NFL, 75%, are not represented in C-level positions, are not represented in coaching positions, are not represented in ownership. How are you telling me there's not one qualified motherfucker in that whole pool that is qualified to be a coach, and not one motherfucker that's qualified to be in a C-level position? Can't afford to own, have an ownership stake in the league or in the team. You got your ancillary workers. You can go be a commentator on a news station and talk about sports. Like what? Okay.
So we're talking about opportunity, right? And that's that. At the end of the day, I have yet to see good examples of how we're given. That's why I don't believe anything's owed to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe some people owe some shit.
Yes, I agree. So say you're in New Jersey, right, where there's not a single black owner of a cannabis license in the state, in the whole state, since the beginning of their program, since their medical program.
It's changing now.
But let's just say that you own one of those licenses, right? In one of those, in a neighborhood that you don't commune in, you don't really work there. You own something there. You don't live there. You don't spend money there. You don't eat lunch there. You don't spend time with your family there. Let's say you own one of those businesses. How can you make a difference in the cannabis industry and be the change that we need now that this is already in your hands and you already own it. I'm going to make a couple suggestions and I'm going to open it up to anybody else that has anything. But my very first suggestion is not just hiring people from that neighborhood who look like people who live in that neighborhood to work on your floor, but also in your management and also in your C-level positions, and give those individuals an opportunity to move up and potentially in the future have an ownership stake either in your company or in their own company. Those are just a few suggestions that I have from a personal standpoint where we're not talking about laws, right? Where you already have this and a responsibility, right? Let's say they don't regulate that. Let's say they don't do that.
You just have to be a good person and
use your privilege and your responsibility to do the things that are necessary to make the change that we would like to see in our industry. And that's my suggestion, but that's coming from my perspective and my point of view. So I leave it to the floor. Jason.
That's a grand idea. It's very utopian from where I sit. I think, we've learned it's where affirmative action came from, right? Like we've learned that when left to our own devices, we sadly will more times than not fail and get our cousin Jojo, or because most businesses are white owned, it's my cousin Brett and his younger sister Chad, Karen. They all get nepotism, and that's how this country has been formed. When
they don't even do the job as good as somebody who doesn't get nepotism.
It doesn't matter when it's your
uncle.
What
I'm saying though?
It doesn't matter when it's your uncle, and this whole country has been established on that.
Right, exactly.
And we were talking earlier about this idea of what's owed and listen. There have been, whether it was when people came back from the war, we fought in the war at a higher percentage than white people, even though we're only 13% of the population. We died in the war then on a higher percentage than white people. And yet, when we came back from World War II, we weren't afforded any of the benefits of GI Bill and housing that the white soldiers were afforded. So we'll step back 2 generations when it came to homesteading. You had to be a free white man in order to qualify for specific homesteading opportunities. Mm-hmm. So you can go get free land that now has value through the roof today, that they make stories about in Napa or Yellowstone, or, you know what I'm saying? But yet, when are we allowed to at least take advantage of the opportunities that are there? We create a Black Wall Street. We create a historically Black college. And then you suck all the talent out of our pool by putting it in on football fields or on basketball fields or on, I love seeing.
Or in graves.
Look, I'm done talking jails and in graves. Yes, we're putting as many of ourselves in there as they are. Diabetes, killing ourselves, whatever it is. But the idea is, where's the solution? When I see today's modern Black star in society invest 110% turnaround, 180 degrees back in his community, where he came from. That's all you can ask, right? So then you have somebody like Deion Sanders, who could be a coach, who could parlay his way into being a coach anywhere in the country, and he chooses to go to a historically Black college and has success within a year or two, and then really now sets example for other people of Deion's stature to come in and be coaches in their respective fields in historically Black college, which then shifts the balance of where we're pulling from to where people are going to end up. And this is slow incremental progress, right? Like, this is really slow incremental progress. But when you're talking about people who 150 years ago were owned, on paper is 3/5 of the people who owned us as white men. I think there is progress to be had, and I don't believe anybody owes us anything. I you know me, I put the work in to go make sure that the doors open and other Black people.
I disagree with you. I think that Black people and Black communities are owed a whole lot, but I understand what you're saying is that, like, you know, you're not going to just sit around and wait for I mean, this country owes a lot. This country as a whole owes a lot. The cannabis industry, the least we could fucking do, but the least we could do is have a pool and not make you somebody who knows, you know, backwards and forwards this industry, you know, pony up with somebody else. You could do it yourself easily.
Yeah, have to be a partner. No, look, at the end of the day, I have yet to see real solution-oriented legislation, state to state, year to year. Colorado had the opportunity. How many high-level Black people did they have in the room that weren't of self-interest, talking about how to create these models?
Yeah,
I do believe we'll find solutions. I'm still just trying to get this. Look, by design, Black people are excluded from even the earliest entry-level positions. So you can't even work. Black people can't even get in the door to work their way up because legislatively, state to state, we were excluded for any or all previous cannabis experience that wasn't on the books before legislation said it was okay.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't use your previous knowledge as
you can't use your
Are you telling me that Augustus Bush didn't get his shit from people hundreds of years ago when the shit was illegal somewhere? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. It's just hypocrisy when it comes to certain people.
It is.
We're starting to identify that we can't live as a society and exclude and marginalize black and brown people the way we have, and still resource them for the capitalist agenda that we so love and enjoy all day. We can't do both. You can't shit on your basketball players and then tell them you can't have a Black coach. You're not smart enough. You can't do that.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, like you. Yeah. Anyways, okay.
I think we got there. You know, I think there's progress being made. I do.
I agree with that. I think that we're continuing to progress. But here's the important part for everybody listening. I want you to spread this message as much as you possibly can. The biggest problem that is being had is that the conversations are being had exclusively and are not being had inclusively. And so you have got to be in the room to put your 2 cents in. They have got to hear your voice. They have to hear your perspective. They don't know your perspective. They're assuming your perspective. How could they possibly know your perspective? They've never lived a single day in your shoes at all. At all. So be in the room, show up, start showing up. Like Adrian was saying, show up for, to listen in on their public meetings. They publicize those, that you can find them virtually. Ladies, like, this show is over. So, if they're having an open forum where you can show up, put your mask on, go show up. But and especially if they're taking public comment, your opinion about things and how you feel about what's going on in your neighborhood and in your city and in your county is important. So go say what needs to be said, because again, they only have their lawmaker perspective, and a lot of it is built in stigma and no knowledge in our communities and in our plant or what we're looking for in business. Or even in like your community, just minus the cannabis part of it. They don't know what's going on directly in your communities because a lot of them just don't live there. So,
if you can't be in meetings or Zooms or whatnot, it's not your thing. Do an email, have a call. There are scripts, we'll try to get something going like that where, we can
working on lots of stuff, but we will put that on the list.
But we're almost there. And lady, she's about to start.
Yeah, she's ready. So any last where can we find you, Jason? Any last thoughts?
It's
a heavy day. It's a heavy day.
Yeah, no, again, I don't want people to feel like the heaviness is disappointment or non-appreciation. Or I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we see a lot of progress. I think we have to, when you talk about real community engagement, means showing up, right? Like at the end of the day, do what you can do to make a difference. For me, it started as the conversation, but then I realized as time went by, people will make a living off of talking about it, and that really didn't see the progress that I wanted to see.
Right.
So I want to put, we started creating things like communities of color career events and putting people to work and trying to really match that infrastructure bridge that most people in my hood don't know about LinkedIn. Most people in my hood don't learn about building resumes and how that works, and really creating a bridge of understanding and education between the two. So, I'm still working on the nonprofit level to build opportunity for people of color to gain access to this industry from entry level to ownership.
Yes.
I'm not running anything specific or doing anything specific, so I'm not really easy to find any, at the moment. I'm going to take some time and really kind of focus on me. I think there's a lot of positive coming out of it. The industry is going to, like everything else in this country, is going to move at its own pace and really, I don't think we haven't even seen a unified cannabis. I can't put my brain around what it's going to look like when the government says we can be border to border, coast to coast, and not have to worry about,
it's going to look like, I don't know, the administration keeping a promise that they made whenever they asked us to hire them to expunge and decriminalize.
Yeah, they've been saying that for a long time. All I say is, I want it. Meanwhile, I promote that illicit parallel lane, because if we have precedents that shows a legal lane is exclusionary, and we have a parallel lane that seems to be full of the same looking people of color, I think there's a decent lawyer that can probably work his way through that, or her way through that. The idea for me being,
wasn't there somebody in another state that we had talked to maybe a year or two ago that was doing something like that? That was like, well, they legalized it here, so I'm running this business and this is what I'm doing.
Well, you said New Jersey, and I know in New Jersey, I know a guy in New Jersey that was running a dispensary, like a dispensary in Colorado. Right,
yes, I think this is the guy.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
That's my man, Ed Forshawn. He's a New Jersey weed man. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, you can't, that's where we get real grassroots. You want to check something out, check out my girl on Instagram. It's Free My Weed Man. The idea that you can't continue to create opportunities for a certain lane of people and exclude the other.
Yes.
So I'm going to continue to promote access to the industry on a legit level playing field, but also promote all Black ownership I can promote. And when the gates open, that we're prepared to be part of the game,
We are also promoting those things.
Yeah, well said.
I know you are. It's why I love you ladies so much.
Love it.
Thank you. Love you.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's a great way to wrap things up. So I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. Remember that we're going to be back on Wednesday. Who's on Wednesday? Do we have a guest on Wednesday?
Let's
look. I'm going to look too. I don't know if we have a guest on Wednesday, but I do know this. Hey,
it's open as of right now.
It's open as of right now. If you know a beautiful, it's open as of right now. If you know a beautiful woman in the cannabis space or not in the cannabis space that wants to come hang out with us and smoke it, it's Work Wednesday. So that's what we're going to be doing on Wednesday, March 1st. But hey, check it out on March 9th. It is a Work Wednesday, but we're actually doing something on Work Wednesday that's a little bit different. We're having like an open call to all boss women. So if you know somebody, or if you are somebody that owns a business, you're an entrepreneur, you run things, maybe you just run a business. Maybe it's a woman run business and you're running shit in there, whatever the thing is. Maybe you're running your household. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're inviting you to
Run
come
your
through.
breathing. You're just breathing. You're just surviving right now.
Join us for right, exactly. Join us for a smoke. Tell us all about what you're doing. And we don't have a particular topic laid out. We'll talk about whatever kind of pops up. You know how this show goes. And we want to just introduce our audience to as many boss women as possible and connect you if the necessity arises to connect you. Maybe you're looking for a good massage therapist in Virginia, and I can guarantee that this person that I'm thinking of right now, hopefully she comes through on the show, is one of the best massage therapists I've ever encountered in my whole life. So, you know, maybe you're looking for a doula. We got some doulas coming through. So, you know, maybe you're looking for somebody to talk to you about expungement programs. We have some individuals that we're hoping to see that are going to come through and talk about that. Medical clinics, running farms, and just being a serial entrepreneur as a woman. Just, we got some amazing women that are saying, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to come through. So we're looking forward to having them, but we want more women. And the month of March is about women. So any boss women you want to send our way, we would love to connect and bring them on the show and highlight what they're doing out there. So March 9th is our women's show, but the whole month of March, we're going to be highlighting women on every show. So definitely let us know if you have a boss woman in your life you want us to highlight. With that said, you guys, be nice to yourselves and make sure that you put your mask on before assisting others. It's very important.
Yes, ma'am. Cultivate love. You deserve it. Bring it to you. And
yes. Stay lifted, everybody.
lifted.
We love hanging out with you. We'll see you on Wednesday, 4:20 Mountain Standard Time. Hey, Jason, hang out if you can.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming through, man. We always appreciate your perspective. Always so insightful.
Talking to you ladies. Same here. Love talking to you ladies.
Soon.